So in today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 5 favorite, more budget-friendly mods that I've done to my 2004 Tahoe over the years. Now, these mods are going to range in cost anywhere from a few $100 down to like under $100, and I have ranked them in that order from more expensive down to, you know, more budget-friendly, bang for your buck. And then after that, I'm going to explain why I am putting my 2004 Tahoe, aka Tahiti, almost completely back to stock. So coming in at number 5 is gonna have to be my CarPlay head unit. Now, I installed this thing about 3 years ago, back in March 2019, and it's actually one of my more popular videos. It has close to like 900,000 views at this point, and this was pretty much a very basic install. All I did was remove the factory Bose head unit. I popped this in, wired it into the factory Bose amp, kept the factory Bose speakers, and I just got the little dongle to retain the steering wheel controls. So you can see all that works like it's supposed to. And I think the only thing that's a little bit iffy is the OnStar. I don't have an OnStar subscription. I never really cared to use it, but sometimes if I accidentally press the OnStar button on the steering wheel, it kind of flips out and just, the lady kind of yells at me at like full volume and I can't get the volume to go down. So that's a bit of a glitch that I think's with the dongle that retains the steering wheel controls. But as for the head unit itself, it's pretty much been trouble-free. The interface is actually very, very smooth for being as old as it is. Everything just kind of pops in and out very, very easily. I never ran into any issues with this like freezing up or needing to be restarted for any reason. There are a couple of smaller caveats, issues that I have had with it. One being the time. So the time up here only reads accurately if the phone is plugged in. Now, this is a head unit that does require the phone to be plugged in to use CarPlay, so it doesn't have wireless CarPlay. And unless the phone's plugged in, this time does not read accurate whatsoever. You could be driving down the road, it'll be 3 p.m., it'll read 8:30, 5 minutes later, it'll read like 11:30. It makes no sense, I don't know why, but the time is just all over the place. I tried turning off different settings, I set it to manual control for the time so it doesn't use like going through the phone or GPS or anything like that. And for some reason, it just still does not read accurately. The other thing is, once in a while, for some reason, I don't have any sound output. This happens maybe every like month or so. I put the key on, the head unit still comes on, I'm playing a song, you see the bar going across, but no sound comes out of the speakers, and I have to turn the key off, open the door, close the door, turn the key back on, and then the head unit restarts and the sound will come out. But I think that's more of like a glitch with the head unit communicating with the factory amp, whereas the amp turn on wire, maybe it's like not enough voltage for the factory amp where it doesn't turn on all the time. I don't know. But other than those small issues, love the way this thing looked. Main reason I picked it up is because I like the matte finish. It kind of matches the interior. It's not like a typical aftermarket head unit that's all like glossy piano black. It has LEDs all over it, RGB. It just looks clean, simple, and just fits the interior. So coming in at number 4 is going to have to be my remote starter. Now, this is another mod I installed a few years back, and it's pretty basic. It's just a remote starter. I mean, most vehicles today come with one. You're probably wondering why this even made the list. But just to show you how it works, I do have it programmed with the key fob, with the lock sequence of the vehicle. So by pressing lock, unlock, lock, the vehicle remote starts. Now, there's nothing really crazy about that. The part that I really like and the reason why it made this list is because of the app connectivity. So just recently I went and picked up the drone mobile dongle. That's an add-on for the CompuStar remote start that I installed, and I do have a 2-part install video on that. I'm gonna link part 1 at the top of the screen. But yeah, with this app I can essentially control the remote start, lock and unlock the vehicle pretty much anywhere in the country, possibly even the world if there's a signal. So you need a signal going to the vehicle, just a regular cell phone signal, and a signal at your phone, and then you could pretty much lock, unlock, remote start it. So if I come in here on the app, you can see it's already running. It has a timer for about 35 minutes. Just hold that down. It's going to turn the vehicle off. We have lock, unlock. You can see it is relatively quick for being like a satellite kind of GPS thing. And this thing has come in handy more times than once. Most of the time, I do remote start this, especially in the winter when it's cold out, and the summer if I'm coming home, if I'm like 15 minutes away and I'm switching vehicles and this thing has been sitting out in the sun. It's very handy just to be able to remote start this anywhere from the phone where the key fob isn't going to reach, and then it'll cool the vehicle down. But more so the lock and unlock feature, where a lot of times I'm in another vehicle, maybe I'm driving the Astra, I don't have the Tahoe key, and I need to pull like the tripod or something out of this that I left inside. I always forget, but then I remember, oh, I got my phone. I could just go in there, hit unlock on the app, take what I need out of it, lock it, and it's just very, very handy to have. There is a subscription fee, so this is one of the more costly options. The remote start, I think, is a couple $100. The add-on, I think it's about $100 or so, and then the subscription, I think it's like $9.99 a month. But for me, it's totally worth it, just for the remote start alone. And the app has some added-on kind of functionality, so you can see it has like a battery monitor. So it'll tell you anytime you just go into the app where your battery voltage is. It'll tell you the status of the vehicle, if it's locked or unlocked. It has other stuff like inside temperature of the vehicle, which that's a little bit iffy because you can see it says 99 degrees. I can assure you it's not 99 degrees in here. I have that stuffed under the dash. I don't know if it's getting heat from just receiving a signal all the time and it's reading wrong, but that's a little iffy. But you can also set maintenance intervals. So when you need your tires rotated, your oil change, it'll monitor your mileage and it'll remind you if you need to get that stuff done. I also have a GPS functionality, so I can essentially track the vehicle through the app. So that's another cool thing just to have for like security purposes. But definitely recommend this module, recommend the remote starter altogether. And once again, that stuff will be linked down below. Coming in at number 3 would have to be my Grant steering wheel. Now, when I got this Tahoe, the steering wheel, like most of these vehicles, most of these vehicles that use this type of steering wheel, this style, it was completely destroyed. So it was all kind of ripped apart in these edges. All the leather or rubber, whatever the hell it is, was all deteriorated. And the leather was in pretty bad shape as well. Now, this is a Grant steering wheel I got from Summit Racing. You could see it's, for the most part, still the factory style, but it does look a little sportier. It has these kind of like weird shaped bolsters on the side. The feel itself, it's not as cushy as the factory steering wheel, so it's a little bit harder. However, this is another thing that I've had installed for a few years, and it's still holding up very, very well. The airbag, it's from a Trailblazer, so I took out the original Tahoe airbag just with the Chevy symbol, put this one in. I thought it looked a little nicer, kind of complemented the wheel a little bit better. And then for all the switches, I got new GM AC Delco steering wheel switches from Amazon, so they all look fresh. They're not worn away how the original ones were, because this thing has close to like 250,000 miles on it by now. At the time I bought it, it had about 210,000, so the steering wheel was already like shot at that point. So coming in at number 2 is my electric fan conversion. Now, at the time I installed these, my clutch fan needed to be replaced. My AC was just blowing dead hot at idle, and the clutch was pretty much gone. I mean, the vehicle didn't overheat or anything, but I knew that it needed to be replaced, so I figured instead of putting another clutch fan in here, why don't I just go ahead and do the electric fan conversion. Now, I did use factory electric fans from like a 2006 GM truck like this. I think they came out of a Tahoe. They come in like a whole different variety of vehicles. I think you could get them in Silverados, Escalades, GMCs. I think the year needs to be 2005, 2006 though. I don't think they came in earlier years. But yeah, I got factory fans from a junkyard, very, very cheap. The harness I made myself. You could buy like a plug and play harness, but I decided to put it together myself. I put this fuse box back here so I have some room to grow if I do want to add any other accessories in there. And I wired them up 100% like stock. So I got the wiring diagram from online. I ran everything exactly how they're supposed to be wired from the factory, and I even tied in the computer to the control for the fan relays. And I went in there with HP Tuners. It's tuning software, and I went in and changed the parameters in the computer. So this fan conversion is 100% stock. They work absolutely flawlessly. I did get a lot of comments going into it when I was doing this conversion, saying that the clutch fan works so much better. It pulls so much more air, especially for towing. If you go to these, it's going to overheat. I have not had this thing ever go over 210 since I've installed them. In fact, just looking at the gauge, looking at the dash, I haven't noticed any difference in the needle movement since when I had the clutch fan on here to when I put the E-fans. I've towed my Camaro with it. I've driven this thing in 100-degree traffic. The AC always blows ice cold. The fans always work perfectly, and that temperature never ever creeps past 210. So if you could get these from a junkyard like I did, get the harness, the wiring from a junkyard, the only thing you really need to do is either install like a temperature sensor in the head to control the fans, to ground them to come on with a certain temperature, or you're gonna have to go in there like I did, which I recommend, and change the software itself to get them to turn on. Now that's the best way to do it. They're gonna work 100% factory, but this is gonna cost a little bit more because you would have to pay somebody if you do not have that software. Now coming in at number 1 as my favorite bang for your buck, best budget mod, easiest to install, it's gotta be the front brake upgrade. So I went ahead and installed front pads, rotors, calipers from a 2007 Tahoe. A lot of you guys recommended this mod down in the comments when I bought this thing. And I gotta say, this is without a doubt my favorite mod so far. So for one thing, the cost. I went to a junkyard and I pulled the calipers and the brackets. You are gonna need the brackets from a Gen 3, or mine in particular came off a 2007 Tahoe. So from 2007 to 2013 is what you're gonna wanna grab these brakes from. And if you're in the market for brakes in general, you just need a brake job. If you're doing pads, rotors, and hell, maybe your caliper pins are seized. You get all this stuff just from a 2007 Tahoe. You're essentially getting this mod for free, being you had to replace the stuff anyway. So the reason this made my number 1 is because not only how cheap everything costs, just all you essentially really need, being the pads and the rotors are wearable items anyway, and you'd have to change them in any brake job, would be the calipers. And like I said, I got them from a junkyard for 20 bucks, and the performance that they give you over the stock stuff, it's night and day. So I have this hill that I constantly go down with this thing. By the time I get to the bottom of that hill, the brakes always used to grind. So you would get, I guess, essentially like off-gassing. When you overheat the brakes, you get that kind of layer of gas between the pad and the rotor, and it kind of causes noise. That's essentially what I think was happening. And whenever I reached the bottom of that hill, every time, every day, without a doubt, it would just happen. Since I put these brakes on, no matter how hard I step on the brakes, how much I'm riding the brakes on the way down, they have yet to overheat and make that noise. Now, I towed my Camaro with it, absolutely no problems. Gone down hills towing the Camaro with it, going down that same hill with the Camaro attached to it, and it still hasn't caused any noise. Now, I have nothing special on here. They're just they're ceramic Wagner brake pads on there, just like AutoZone rotors. The brakes in particular, they're larger by an inch. So the rotor itself is an inch larger than the factory one, so that's gonna give you more pad contact area. It's also gonna give you more heat, more area for heat dissipation, which is why this works so well. Now, as for your wheel size, I don't know if this is gonna fit with a 16-inch wheel. Mine's a Z71, this is a 17-inch rim, and they fit in there without a problem, but it is a little bit close, and I'm not sure if it's going to clear a 16-inch wheel. So that's definitely something you're gonna wanna check before you go ahead and do this. But yeah, totally my number 1. I do have a video on the install, so I am going to link that down in the description as well, or at the top of the screen. And now I think it's time to explain why I put factory wheels back on here. So as you can see, Tahiti is looking a little bit stock. I recently went ahead and ordered some remanufactured stock Z71 17-inch wheels. I got a new set of Continental Terrain Contact 265 70 17-inch tires, factory tire size for those factory wheels, and I finished them off with some fresh factory center caps, lug nuts, and lug nut covers. Also, if you could kind of peek towards the back, I also went ahead and put the stock taillights back in. And back here, as you can see, I went back to the stock glass. I removed the Escalade glass. I never installed the Escalade pillars, and yeah, we got our factory taillights reinstalled with the factory third brake light. Now, as of right now, I still have the HD front end on here, and that's gonna be going as well. So I'm gonna be putting a stock Tahoe hood back on, stock Z71 grill, getting rid of these headlights that need to be replaced anyway because they're still damaged from when I had the accident where the scaffolding hit it when it was parked. So I'm gonna put factory headlights back in. I'm going to raise the front bumper back up to factory specification. So the whole HD front end is going. Now my reasoning for this is pretty simple. I hate this thing now. Now, not the way it currently sits, but the reason for this build, I mentioned it, or I released it as like a kind of a TRX kind of build. So I wanted to kind of modernize this thing, give it a bunch of power, kind of make it look more aggressive, off-road capable. And then I realized I absolutely hate it. So when I make these videos, a lot of the times I do this stuff for YouTube. Now, I'm not really much of a lifted truck guy. I prefer cars. Well, in this case, I do like this Tahoe, and there is a reason I bought it. I do like the looks of this generation. I like the looks of the factory Z71 package, and I love the cushiness that this thing gives you when you're driving down the road. Now, the reason for that build was primarily for YouTube. I wanted to do something a little different, something that wasn't cars. I just didn't realize I was going to dislike it as much as I did. After installing the wheels, although I did like the aggressiveness of the tire, I wasn't really sold on the black wheel altogether. And then after driving this thing for a while, I really started to just hate the ride quality. Now, putting in those atomic coilovers definitely helped the situation. When I initially leveled this thing out, I just put torsion keys in, and that kind of stiffened it up a bit, but I was still riding on the smaller 18-inch 2014 Z71 wheel and tire, so it wasn't really that bad. But then once I put the coilovers in, it actually improved quite a bit. Since I then put the giant KO2 tires on there, initially just driving around here, finishing up the video, everything felt great. Once gas prices went down, I started dailying this thing, driving it into Manhattan, driving it on the Gowanus, on the BQE, on all the concrete paved highways we have around here. I started to absolutely hate it. It was bouncy, hitting bumps, it was hard. It felt like the dashboard was gonna come out. And that was really kind of, I'm like, do I want to continue this build? I don't even feel like driving this thing anymore. I started looking back to when I first bought this thing, when I did just the badges, the newer wheels. I loved how clean it looked, how just simple it was, and how much it just rided, pretty much completely stock. So that's when I decided, okay, enough with the YouTube build. I want to do what I want, and I'm going to put this thing back to stock. Now, I don't really need to change the front end. I don't need to put the lights back in and do all that. Hell, I could have even just kept the wheels that I had and just put softer tires on them. But I decided to kind of change this build into a direction of making it more of a sleeper. So I really do like the way these things look stock. That's the reason I bought it. It was extremely clean from auction. At the time, it didn't have any rocker rust or anything that was visible. The paint's in great shape. The stock Z71 wheels, just the whole package, I love the way it looks, even with the paint color. So I decided just to kind of restore this thing, make it a really nice, clean example and more of a sleeper. So I'm still going to be doing engine stuff, but I'm going to sell a lot of this stuff off. The hood is in pretty rough shape. It needs body work, but I could probably get like 50 bucks or so for it. The grill, it's OEM. I could get some good money. The bumper's staying. It needs to be replaced regardless because the factory one was rotted out. I am going to be selling off the bumper cap, however, and putting the stock bumper cap back on with the stock Z71 grill. I'm going to be putting the side steps back on. I'm going to be repairing the rocker rust, putting all the cladding back on, just restoring it with some kind of like a mother's solution wipe, something like that, just to make it look all new. And then I'm going to be sending it off to the body shop to have the bumpers painted, color matched, the grill color matched, and the hood painted once I either find a factory hood that's not damaged, because I still have my factory one. I might just throw that back on and do a repair on it. Maybe we'll do some body work to fix that dent where the scaffolding caused damage. And yeah, I'm gonna have the back bumper painted, and I'm just gonna sell everything off. Now, the reason I'm making this video, I'm not gonna document me doing any of this. Well, I'm gonna document the rust repair and some stuff like that, but as for putting the factory grill back on, the hood, I'm not really gonna do that unless you guys wanna see it, but there's really no point. You can see me do the front end conversion. It's just putting the factory hood back on. I will document the body work if I do decide to do it. And yeah, I will be documenting all of the mods that are gonna be coming for this thing, especially the drivetrain mod. So I am still planning on making this thing fast. I just want it to still drive cushy and essentially just be mash the gas fast in a straight line. As for the coilovers, I'm not 100% on those yet. It does drive very, very nice with the smaller factory tires and the coilovers. However, I don't really utilize the adjustability of them, which is why I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I'm going to sell them. Since I've installed them, Like I said, this is pretty much just a daily driver. I have not touched them. I leave them on soft. I like them on soft. It is nice that when you do kind of mess with them, the thing rides like ridiculously nice. Like it has no body roll, which is great. But it's not something that I see myself really utilizing or have utilized up until this point. So I figured I have all the torsion bar stuff. I can essentially put that stuff back in, sell these off with the upper control arms as a nice little package, and use that money to put into the paint or the engine to make it faster. Now, for that conversion to put the torsion bars back in, I do need to fab some bump stops brackets, because those had to be cut off to fit it, but that's not really a big deal. I have all the old bump stops, the old control arms, the torsion bars, all that stuff to go back in without an issue. And I am also, the reason why I'm also mentioning getting rid of the coilover is because I am planning on dropping this thing back down to factory ride height to give it that slight factory rake. And like I said, I want this thing to look 100% stock and then just have a shitload of power and still drive cushy as hell. But for now, yeah, those are my top 5 upgrades. That's my reasoning for putting this thing back to stock. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, have you ever done any mods that you just weren't feeling and you decided to go in the other direction and switch everything back? Yeah, I'm losing a good amount of money. I mean, I'll make some of it back selling the wheels, the tires, some of the stuff, but at the end of the day, I am still losing cash. I'm losing the labor that I put into it. But I do definitely think I'm going to be way, way happier with the build. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right?